Hi, I'm Kaylin, and despite my unmistakable American accent, I've lived in the UK for over 10 years, which means today we're doing another one of our compilation videos of some of the most obscure, off-the-wall, ridiculous, and random differences between the US and the UK that you might not have heard of. I will also be addressing my comments section favorite topic, the American use of the phrase on accident rather than by accident, so you'll want to stick around for that one. Let's start with number one, the term wrench and spanner. When I did a video including this term, I believed that it was simple. The US calls the tool a wrench and the UK calls it a spanner. But you learn something new every day, and that is not strictly the case. It is mostly the case, but it's not entirely that simple. So in the US, both fixed and adjustable tools that look like this are typically known as a wrench. There are different types of wrenches, but it's a wrench nonetheless. I had never heard the term spanner in the US, but more on that in a second. In the UK, the word wrench is actually used, but it typically refers to the adjustable version of the tool. So Halford's website helpfully helps us out and tells us that in the UK, wrench generally refers to adjustable wrenches, which have a movable lower jaw that you can adjust to different size nuts and bolts. A spanner in the UK is technically a size-specific and fixed version of this tool. But to make things even more complicated, Americans do have a version of a wrench that we call a spanner wrench, which looks like this. It can also be called a pin spanner, but I lived in America and had never heard of this, so it's more going to be used by people who are in the know when it comes to tools, which, not to be stereotypical, but usually doesn't include infant to 18-year-old girls, which accounts for most of my life in America, so that might explain it. Next up is Doritos, a type of crisp called chips in the USA. I don't eat that many of them, but the two main, most prominent types in America are the red bag kind, called nacho cheese, and the blue bag kind, called Cool Ranch. The UK also has Doritos, and it has a red and blue bag version, but are they the same? The blue bag version, called Cool Original in the UK, is basically the same as the US's Cool Ranch. It's just that ranch as a flavor slash dressing isn't popular in the UK, and so I can understand why it's not called the same thing. But the red Doritos bag in the UK is called Chili Heat Wave, and this is not the same as the American red bag nacho cheese. Actually, the equivalent to the American red bag nacho cheese is an orange bag version in the UK called Tangy Cheese. So even among the same brand, packaging, and the name of the snacks can differ between countries. Next up, there's a phrase used all the time in the UK known as self-catering. You might be wondering what the American equivalent is, seeing as how I've included this in the video, but the difference is that there really is no American equivalent for the term, really. That's the difference. We know in the UK that self-catering typically refers to a cottage or flat somewhere you're going on holiday that comes with the accommodation only, no food included. That's what self-catering means. It also implies that there is no restaurant or staff on site typically, just cooking facilities for you to make your own food to self-cater. In the US, we only think of the term catering typically in the professional sense, like you would cater a wedding, but even so, we would just say that we're renting a cottage or apartment or house somewhere. We wouldn't even think to reference that it doesn't include food because that is the default assumption. The term self-catering does seem to be used in parts of Canada and perhaps has bled into the states further north, but mostly it's an unused term in much of the US and we wouldn't necessarily know what you were talking about. We also don't use the term full board or half board like you'll find across Europe, and if you go online and search like Americans in these terms, you'll find many Americans on internet forums asking Europeans what in the world this means. It is sometimes common for an American hotel to come with breakfast, but coming with another meal or having other food included is not common whatsoever, so we don't really share this concept. Next up is the turtle versus tortoise conundrum, because I definitely saw a lot of this when I did a video about animals that I see in the US but not in the UK. So here's what it is. In America, turtle is the larger categorization. Is that a word? Categorization? Did I say that correctly? We'll just leave this in. Turtle is how you correctly categorize this. This is a marine-based one, and this is a land-based one, but Americans often call both of these things turtles. The American Society of Things that I cannot pronounce, but I will put up on the screen, only use tortoises for a very specific term for a slow-moving terrestrial species. But British usage tends not to use turtle as a generic term. It applies the term tortoises to all land-dwelling members of this group and turtles to the sea-dwelling ones. Hence, a lot of people in my comment section saying, "You said turtle," and showed a tortoise. In American usage, it's the same thing. It's like how a leopard is a type of cat. So technically, you're not wrong if you call it a cat, but using the term leopard is more specific. All leopards are cats, but not all cats are leopards. All tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises. But the usage is different again if you're talking about other English-speaking countries like Australia, as traditionally freshwater turtles have been called tortoises in Australia, so basically there is no agreed definition for turtle and tortoise across the English language. I mean, there is in each individual country, but not typically across them. So to sum up my very long point, in America, we often call this animal a turtle regardless of its being on land or in the ocean or freshwater, and in the UK, they do differentiate even amongst the average public person between calling a tortoise for a land-based creature and a turtle for a sea-based one. Now let's talk about something that always comes up because I say it all of the time, the American usage of the phrase on accident instead of what is used in the UK and most other English-speaking places, by accident. Where did it come from? Why do Americans say it like that? Am I going to stop saying it like that to please my YouTube audience? The answer to my last question is probably not, but the answer to the first two has to do with a sort of shift in language in the US for certain generations, including the one I am a part of. It's also a little bit regional. Let me explain. The use of on accident seems to be distributed by age within the US. So on accident is most commonly said by people born after 1995 and not common at all in the people before 1970, so obviously there's a large spectrum there. I was born in the early 90s, so I fit into the later part of the category that says on accident. Nobody really knows why people started saying it this way, but it's thought to be a parallel of on purpose. Sometimes when language changes though, it's hard to track down the specific rhyme or reason. Regionally, it's also more common in the South in the US as well as the West. And I'm from Florida, so that would count as the South, while the Northeastern states still seem to say by accident a little bit more even among younger generations. It does come across as a very American phrase though, so I understand why it's jarring to people across the pond who are listening to me speak. But if you're wondering if I said on accident by accident, then the answer is no. I said on accident on purpose and not on accident. Also, I just know there's some people in the comments section about to rage about how wrong it is, but that's what makes the internet go around and it helps the algorithm. So please go ahead and comment. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying that that's how I say it. Anyway, that brings me to the end of this short but obscure list of differences between the US and the UK. So as always, thanks very much for watching and I'll see you next time.